Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. We'll begin with the roll call. Jane?
Here.
Brent?
Here.
Jeannie?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Stacy?
Here.
All here and accounted for. Thank you, everyone. Mike, has the meeting been properly noticed?
The meeting has been properly noticed.
I'd like to call for the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda so adopted. Please join me for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many bright, shining faces in our audience tonight. We love guests. Thank you for being here. We're going to start with some salutes and recognitions, and I think Larry was going to go first.
Oh, with the officials?
Yes.
Well, we have a special occasion this evening, which some of us didn't necessarily know about until today, but it happens to be Mr. Katie's birthday today. So in honor of that, would you all join me in singing, Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you,
Happy birthday, dear Mike. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. I'll turn to other board members, or Larry, if you would like. Anyone have salutes or recognitions that they'd like to offer tonight? Okay. Staff members, anybody?
I want to salute Ben Graham and John Stangler. They have been instrumental in helping us pull off our Leadership Week service project, which many of you either helped with today or will be helping with on Wednesday, and our team. So Ben Graham built our little libraries for us, and John has really been coordinating things with Park and Rec to make sure it all gets pulled off without a hitch this week, and so I just want to thank them. And then also salute Sandy Krakowski, who's here tonight filling in for Julie, but Sandy is instrumental in our Leadership Week activities as well, in doing a lot of the behind the scenes work and getting me all organized so that our week is a successful and fun week.
Thank you.
I would add to the salute for the Little Libraries, Rich Eels, who was also a key contributor to that team.
And I would like to salute Dr. Bosonic for all the work that she did, because does a ton of the planning for our Summer Leadership Week. For those of you who aren't familiar or maybe watching at home, Leadership Week is a 4-day event we do every summer, which is a lot of our planning for the school year administratively happens, a lot of team building happens, and it's an important few days for us, and Danielle does a great job with the help of Sandy, and Robin Wilson certainly plays a role in that as well, putting that together.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else that I missed? Okay. Comments from citizen. I actually have a comment card tonight. Miley Barris, did I say that right?
Yes. Actually, I don't know. I was hoping to follow Emily Jusela talking about her in support of her proposal.
Yes, we have another chance at the end of the meeting if you would like to speak. Okay, you're welcome. That brings us to the consent agenda. Minutes from previous meetings, correspondence, and gifts. There are no gifts in this meeting, but all those other items were presented in your board packet for tonight's review.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. It's approved. Business affairs. We have a lot of topics on tonight, so we're going to click through a lot of things. Brian will start us off with an update on Business Affairs Committee, which met earlier this evening.
Well, as you can guess, it's the end of the year type stuff that we're looking at, and we, of course, looked at the check register. There might be a few more that we have to put into last year before we start writing checks on this new year. And then we looked at our financial position, which is robust, to say the least. John has done a great job at managing the numbers here, and with things like getting more transportation aid that we didn't expect, and having money to put into a Fund 46 for future capital needs, we're sitting in great shape. So all around, what the future holds, who knows? But right now we're sitting in pretty good shape.
Excellent. Any questions for the Business Affairs Committee?
Business Affairs recommends approval of the report.
I'd seek a motion then.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Brian and team, for your review, and John for your wrap-up of the previous fiscal year, as we can get started in the new one. Brings us to new business. We have a field trip request from Emily Jusula. Thank you. All of you have seen the material in your packet. Looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah, and I just would set the table a little bit. Emily had approached Anthony Pizzo with an idea. So this is, and she asked, should she do a presentation? A lot of times for field trips, we don't. But this is our second ever request for middle school students to go international. First one, and the other one was to Canada. So this one's a little further away over the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a real exciting opportunity. Emily had presented to Danielle and I already in terms of her plan, and she has quite a background. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, board members, for having us tonight and sharing in this excitement and potential adventure that we could be going on soon. So just to start us off, a little bit of how we got here. Is anyone familiar with the launch cycle or design thinking that we do? Okay, so I won't go into all of that. So we used that this past year in our language arts 7th grade class, and students were asked to identify a problem about something they are passionate about, and then through the launch cycle, find a solution to that. So one of the examples that we came up with while we were working through it as a class was that students do not get to travel enough in younger grades. Sometimes students have the opportunity in high school, maybe their junior or senior year, if they've taken a foreign language for a long time or other circumstances. But we wanted to expand that and offer educational opportunities abroad for all students earlier, so they can take those chances in high school and maybe want to do study abroad as it becomes more available. So I'm going to have, or invite Elena Ehrlich up. She is one of my students from last year going into 8th grade. She's going to share just a little bit about her stance or thoughts on why this would be valuable for us.
My thoughts on the London project basically extend to the fact that it'd be such a good experience for kids to get a more cultural reaching out in the world. Right now, like, you only get to go out of the country for this school if you take a foreign language, like she said, for pretty much every time that you offered a foreign language. And not all kids get to do that. And I think it'd be a very good thing for everyone to get that opportunity before they go into high school, where you get that more early interest. You can sink into things easier when you're younger. And I think overall, my thoughts on this issue could be pretty much summarized by this quote by Kenneth Kushner, who is the international and intercultural professor at Kent State University. He says that traveling abroad and studying abroad can lead to many different things, such as spiritual awakening and a connectedness bigger than anything around us individually, which just means an open mind and everything in between. And that's very important, and I think that's exactly what Pewaukee needs from its students to get from any sort of international experience.
Could not have said it better myself. So we talk all about the graduate profile and competencies and all these elements of being a good human. Obviously, there are an abundant amount of academic connections you can make going abroad, but those are also those human components that Elena was talking about. So overall, we really want to look at taking middle school students. So it would, by the time we travel, it would be 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, because these ladies who are sitting behind me tonight and came in the middle of summer to a board meeting, which I think is awesome, they will be in 9th grade by that point, or the time I'm proposing to travel. So I do think it's fair for them. We've put in the work. We've kind of done the background, I would like them to come. But going forward, it would be primarily a middle school-based adventure. We would be working with EF Tours, and there would be some classroom components as well that would connect to that. Success that I think would come of this, I want students to be curious about the world, wonder about things, get out there, adventure. If you don't know something, learn about it and ask questions. And I think what better experience than seeing something in front of you and wanting to know more. When I was looking for tour companies to work with, EF really stood out to me. They are called EF because it stands for Education First. They have teachers on staff, and their educational philosophy really aligns quite well with our graduate profile. They really focus on growth mindset, global perspective, personal development, and then action and impact, which are all things that Pewaukee also is in support of. So during our tours with them, they not only, everyone's been on those tours where they tell you all the history and you look out the window and it's great, but their tour guides are trained on these elements as well. So how do you bring out that global perspective during that tour of Tower Bridge from the 1800s? So they make that relevant today and try to connect that to student life. EF also offers tours all over the place. So you may be wondering, why London? Can't you go somewhere else that's not so far? Technically, sure, but I would advocate for London for a couple of reasons. First of all, the culture is profound. Yes, it's English. Yes, it's a language we speak and we're comfortable with, but it is a global connecting center of cultures from all over the world. You can have a wonderful curry on this street, go across to Chinatown. You can have food from all over the place, museums galore. And I just think it's a great springboard for international travel. We don't want to, at this point in this age, want to be going into a language immersion type thing. I speak English. I don't know other languages as well as I would like. So this is a great thing, safety-wise as well, just for starting out and developing that curiosity for students to want to go further. Study abroad, there are over 100,000 international students enrolled in London, so for future sake, this could be a great destination for our students if they are interested in studying abroad. Maybe they can go over there, tell us more about it in the future. Connectivity, public transportation is excellent, so safety-wise, we would have pretty efficient in terms of that. And population, it's about the size of New York City, so comparatively, we are getting that big city feel as well. Experience-wise, I myself have been there a couple times, as well as a few times with my own children, so my knowledge and comfort with the city would be able to lend itself to our tour director. If there is some sort of situation, I can feel comfortable navigating independently to assist our tour guide, so it's not all on them or the show. Numbers, I know that's a big component. So for the student price, it would be $38.90, and then for the adult price, $42.40. There is an additional cost in there to ensure a private trip, so that means that we are purchasing all of the seats on the bus. So we would be only traveling with additional Pewaukee students when we do our tours. Obviously, when you're on the plane and those sorts of things, it's not just Pewaukee, but our internet or the daily tours that we're doing would be just us, as well as the accommodations. Our hotel wing would just be Pewaukee students and parents that would be traveling. So if we fill the whole bus with travelers, that cost for people goes down. If we have 10 people that end up signing up going, then we are paying a little bit more because we're buying out those remaining seats. If adults are interested in coming, we would love to have them, so that's why that adult price is on there. We are asking them if they want to join us, come as a traveler. We would really like to have our own Pewaukee staff be our chaperones, so we can have those relationship building elements with all students throughout the school year and in preparation for the trip, as well as just being up to date with all of those safety procedures and those kinds of things. And then that bottom portion there with the icons are just what's included with that. Fundraising, students get their own fundraising sites, so it's very easy to share that link with people. If you're babysitting over the summer, hey, here's my link if you want to donate. Maybe people donate more, you can kind of work towards that. Also great just for keeping up to date with some budgeting skills and all sorts of things. Obviously, London is fabulous for lots of sites that you are going to go to. You're going to see Big Ben, you're going to see Tower Bridge. Shakespeare's Globe would be a wonderful connection for 9th grade students in ELA, that you could connect Romeo and Juliet unit to that. Part of our itinerary would be inclusive with a performance at London's West End, which is very equivalent to Broadway. So kind of a cool cool experience. In my opinion, that's not the coolest part. I think the coolest part is our London launch that we would be doing. So to summarize this super briefly, since you guys know about it, kids would get to determine where they want to go on 2 of our days while we are there. So based on what they're interested in, where they want to potentially schedule their classes in high school. If you are a business person, okay, maybe I want to go tour this school, so I'm going to work on some communication skills, and I'm going to email and research and reach out to these places. Maybe I'm going to connect with Mrs. Fruth, who's one of our interested chaperones, and she's going to help support me in maybe a project that would align with something I could do in London. So we have a variety of chaperones interested in a variety of content levels as well as grade levels for that purpose. So our London launch group would be inviting all students that are registering for the trip to participate. We would do this during Pirate Resource through ASA, and then for our high school students, the 7th graders this year and the freshmen would have that morning resource overlap in our schedule. So we would be able to do some cross-building collaboration as well. Also building those relationships so when kids are traveling together, it's not like a bunch of random kids together. You've worked with them for the last year and a half, kind of getting to this point. All right, clarity statement, I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we want our students to be curious about the world. So I want to share that bottom really embarrassing picture underneath success is me on my middle school trip to London in 8th grade. I won't tell you the date because I told Mike and he laughed. But it was a wonderful experience, and to say that it changed my life would be a complete understatement. I went into history and English because of this trip. A teacher took a gamble, and it was her first year planning this trip, and I am who I am today because of this trip. I have taken both of my kids back to London. My 2-year-old's been there twice already. It's my happy place, and it has inspired me to continue going and traveling and being aware, and it just really opened that door for me, and that's really what I want to do for kids. It's amazing what travel can do when you get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and I think London would be a great starting point for kids to dive into the world around us. Because opening one door can lead to another. And I'm going to invite these ladies behind me to come up as well if you guys have any questions. So Elena was our speaker today, and then Allie and Francesca I put them on the spot a little bit, so if they're not super prepared, don't hold it against them. They came to support, so if you have any questions for me or for the students, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Brian has one.
So what would be the max number to fill out that bus full of
We have
travelers?
42 travelers counting all of our chaperones. So right now the ratio is 6 students to 1 chaperone. I know when Mike and I had talked, we had kind of toyed around with, do we add an additional chaperone? So that would potentially bring that ratio down even more.
And what about students that don't have the economic means?
Yes, I was that kid. So I am extremely passionate about fundraising and making sure that all students are able to go. So during our London launch, part of what we would be working on is executing and planning those fundraisers. So students would be in collaboration with each other. You may be reaching out to community businesses and seeing what you can do to actually facilitate these fundraisers. We also have a wonderful parent who is interested, and also the ASA PTO representative who would be willing to help us with some of those things. And EF also offers scholarships on a needs-based basis, so students can apply for those as well.
And the total time in London on the ground?
7 days.
7 days?
Yep. So it will be fast, but
Yeah, you won't be able to see all those places you showed in 7 days.
they're all on
Yep.
the itinerary.
Okay.
Yep.
Dang.
Yeah, it'll be fast, but it'll be,
That way they'll sleep.
yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, that plane ride home.
Bring good shoes.
Yeah, definitely.
Other board member questions, Larry?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't quite clear. I know you've got the 2024 date, so we know whenever that spring break period is.
Yes.
But is there a deadline date by which you have to have that magic number of 42 or whatever it is, and what date is that?
Yeah, they say it needs to be 12 weeks ahead of time. I would say it needs to be further than that, because if you're anticipating needing to do any kind of fundraising, you're going to want time, unless parents are able to cover that. But I also think that relationship building, and in order to do the launch and actually be equipped and ready to dive in, I think the pre-learning here is almost equally, if not more valuable than the trip itself. So I think having that opportunity would be important. So I'd be absolutely open to collaboration or suggestions on that.
So, and would a condition of participation in that be tied into that pre-launch?
Yes.
So that would start in the fall of 23, 20,
Yes, 21, we could start it now. So whenever students are registered, goal would be to have information for parents right away at open house in the fall,
Okay.
in August, and then we could start that, give them a couple weeks to get situated into things, so maybe second semester we start that. But a lot of that is nuts and bolts I would need to finalize, but absolutely open to suggestions.
and do you have any sense of the number of students that might be interested?
Well, I have 3 here for sure. I don't. My thought would be that it's gonna fill up. Like Mike said, we haven't offered something like this before, but hearing kids talk about it, and like, what do you guys think? You've heard your friends talk about it, like you each know a handful of kids that are like, yes, I'm in.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think it's looking. From what I've heard, it kind of looks like a highlight to some people and just something that they're really looking forward to. And then just a comment further back, I think some of the fundraising skills that we might learn from this can, help us in all different areas. So if we're learning how to fundraise, how to just have all different kinds of life skills, of course that'll help us in any way. And that can also, open the door to different opportunities.
Other questions? Larry?
Well, if you want to go.
No, you go ahead.
So if we do this and approve it, is it something that, is this like a one-time trip or something that you'd plan to incorporate in on an ongoing basis or not? But
If you tell me yes, I will do this until I retire. So how
Careful what you
long do you
wish
want me
for
to do
now.
this?
Aaron Yeskus
I
has been
would-
doing trips for a long time.
I would love, that would be amazing to continue to do that. And the more we would do it, we could explore other places. It doesn't need to be this destination each time. This to me is somewhere I feel safe with, that like I said, I brought my own kids, so I would feel comfortable bringing students. I don't want to do that in every country if I haven't been there myself and can speak to the safety elements of it. But yeah, I would love to keep it going if there's interest.
Because one of the things, which is obviously, again, not a pro or con one way or the other, but it's just that the safety of the students traveling on this trip, and again, whether they are in the United States or the kids that we've sent to other countries, safety is like paramount in terms of
Yep.
this. So, I mean, whatever you can do or whatever incentives you have to have for the students to recognize that this is truly a privilege, and we need to
Absolutely.
make sure that there's the safety aspects of this are really, really high up on everybody's priorities.
Agreed, yes. And that is one of the things about EF that is great too. They have a London headquarters, so they have people on the ground in the city where we will be. They also have a response team that's 24/7. So if a parent has an issue at home, they can get a hold of us and vice versa. And our tour director is with us the entire time. They meet us at the airport, they pick us up, they ride with us on the tube right away that first time to get to our hotel, and they actually reside in the hotel with us during our trip too.
Yeah. And partially just for the board and for the people. So my son was able to travel as like his first year as a freshman in high school. He had probably the most awesome trip ever in terms of we went to England, to Paris, and then a place in Spain. My daughter was not able to go because we suspended all travel because of 2001. And so that kind of created a lot of challenges there,
Yeah.
but she did go on a trip as well. So I'm all in favor of it and would support, I think, the trip whenever that motion comes up, but.
Stacy, you had a question?
Will there be like actual schoolwork involved, or is it really just a sightseeing and cultural trip?
Schoolwork in terms of what, like assignments that are graded and those sorts of
Not
things?
necessarily graded, but just asked of them to submit, whether it be a journal or
Yeah,
writings.
they
or-
can. I would definitely like to do some sort of showcase on the back end once we return. I know some of you, Ferris was able to join us for our launch showcase that we did just in class this time around, but I think it would be great for the London launch kids to do something, whether that's a district share out or we come share with you guys. EF does have a personalized learning guide rubric and project that they have, and they actually publish projects to their website, and they have different things that we can follow in terms of that. It really aligns quite well with many content, so I could see different elements of it being used in different classes. So like Allie was talking about the budgeting and the fundraising, that could be great for entrepreneurship. The part where you're talking about why you want to go and staking an argument could be great for language arts. So I think it depends on where kids take those launch projects, but I absolutely think those could be implemented where appropriate. And I know that ASA teachers too are very flexible with kind of working together to meet those standards in different ways.
And the ones that you showed up on the slide, they're all interested in going?
Yep.
Okay, and this is newbie question, because we haven't had trips since I've been on the board. Does the school district cover the staff, or does the staff pay for themselves?
No, that's usually covered through the fundraising
Okay,
that
And
happens.
in EF's case, they actually pay for the chaperones. So there is no chaperone cost. If the student, they keep that ratio. So they
Okay.
bring one chaperone for every
For every
six students.
six, right.
So however many students we have, that's how many we're good to go. So if we don't fill that bus, not everyone's
I understand, okay.
Yep.
And then my only challenge is my children have all graduated.
going. Sarah
I'm a
can
little
come back and
disappointed.
chaperone. Yeah, that's fine. Yep, you're over 18. Need a background check.
I'll have a question. Do any of the three of you have a summer job this year to start raising money for this trip you're gonna go on?
You got some projects, Steve, or what?
You know,
Babysitting.
Anyone need a
There you go.
babysitter?
Need your house painted or anything like that?
fortunately not. I get lots of offers for that though, thank you. Thank you. We do love it when after these events occur, that members come back and speak to the board about their trip and what they learned. It's really a great way for us to see the value of the experience that all of you have as part of this. So thank you for your willingness to do that, if you will. It's certainly something we would definitely encourage you to participate in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to ask a
Another
question.
quick question.
Yeah.
So you have a limit of 42, and so would you prioritize for the older kids, or how would you determine who would?
That's a good question.
you know?
So far, all I know is that my kids know about it that have had it last year, just because we've worked through it together. But that would be something we could kind of work through too, if you guys are in support of it and we can move ahead. There's a lot of little logistics I need to figure out, but my initial thought was to have all information available to incoming 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at ASA for this year, and it's first come, first serve. But if this trip goes well and we are able to do it in the future, any of those kids that aren't, would we continue to keep it as 9th grade can come as well, because they may have been on that rotation year. So those are just things we can figure out as we go.
And the parents are well, you want parents, or you don't want parents?
Parents
or?
are welcome to come. Some of the, I've talked with a couple other teachers who have done international trips, and the general consensus was if there are more parent chaperones, it sometimes tends to be parents are on vacation. When you really need all eyes on the ground, you need to be working when you're there. It's not a vacation. We could go on vacations without kids, and it'd be a heck of a lot easier, but that's not the point. So we want parents to come if that's what they're comfortable with, and you want to come experience that with your child, absolutely. But come and enjoy it with your kid. We'll take care of the other stuff.
That pricing, is that locked in? Because there is a duration of time between now and when that travel takes place.
Correct.
Did they talk anything about how much those costs could go up per student between now and then?
Once we have our trip registered and we are officially going with EF, those prices are locked in.
Okay.
So they will take the hit for up or down or however it goes. If it goes down, we're not getting any money back, but they would lock that in for us at that point.
I would just put a couple things out there just to make sure it was clear. One, this is a spring break trip, so the students wouldn't be missing any school. A 6-to-1 ratio is really good for travel. I know understand that we have not approved an international trip since the pandemic, so this is the first, but we're talking all the way into the spring of '24. So I really think that's a safe window of time in terms of, today's information. That would seem to be, because as this thing's been a little bit unpredictable, I would, feel pretty comfortable with that time frame, knowing that we never know what could happen. I can say when Danielle and I met with Emily, I was really at ease with the level of planning, the company that she's working with, the plan that's in place. I think this would be a great experience for kids, and I really think it would be, again, if parents are supportive and they're okay with their child going, I have a complete faith in our staff that would be going. I think it'd just be a great experience for kids.
Any more question?
No, I'm ready to move to motion.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Larry, then.
Okay, I would like to move to approve the field trip request for students to travel to London over the spring break in the 2024 year.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion's passed.
Work hard and
Congratulations.
Thank you,
your trip.
guys. Thank
Excellent
you.
work.
Mind the
Thank you so
gap.
much.
Thank you for
Start
coming.
babysitting. See what happens when you guys use that launch cycle? You know, you put your stuff to work.
Our next order of business is an athletic and activities update from Jeff Behrens. Mike, do you have anything you want to share to start?
No, this is an annual report that Jeff does with the board each summer. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me in tonight. I want to start off by saying that because of all the success that we've had, the athletic director is going to go to London too. No, I want to start off by just before I get into the accomplishments and the accolades and things like that. We started the year off, I think, in a really, really great way by adding a boys volleyball program and a strength and conditioning coach position to really to continue to meet the needs of our student athletes. And so before we get into all the accolades, I just want to make sure I highlight those two. Otherwise, as we go through this, you guys have the report. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the numbers as we go through, and then I'll take any questions on the athletics side of things. Then I'll get into the activities and take any questions on the activities. So participation-wise, 56% of our student body participated in athletics this year. That's up 2%. As I go through this, let me preface it by saying that winning is never a goal for us. When I talk with coaches at coaches meetings, we never talk about how can we get more wins. It's always about how can we serve the students that we have, how can we push our athletic department core principles. It's those types of things that we do. We really have a philosophy that if we concentrate on the process of getting better every single day, the wins will come. The winning is a byproduct of what we're actually doing with our student athletes. Participation rates are one of those things that we measure every year. We want to make sure that we are engaging our students, that we're getting as many students as we can involved. Every study out there shows that when students are involved in their educational experience through extracurricular activities, they have a better experience, their GPAs are up, they're more successful, and so on. So participation, I always start off this report with participation rates. The fact that our participation rates went up 2% is a great thing. Even more so, multiple sport athletes went up. We had 214 multiple sport athletes compared to only 178 last year. So it's nice to see that our multiple sport athlete numbers went up a little bit. And maybe that was because of COVID. Maybe last year was down a little bit. Who knows? But I'm going to take the win as we have it. In conference championships, we had 5 conference titles. Again, that was the most in the conference. Highlighted by girls tennis. That was the first time in school history that girls tennis won a conference title. On a sidebar, the other 4 sports there were all back-to-back. They had all won conference last year and repeated this year. We had 7 regional titles this year with boys soccer, boys basketball, and girls soccer repeating as regional champions. And we had 5 sectional titles with boys basketball and baseball repeating as sectional champions. For state qualifiers, 7-team state qualifiers in 1 year. Going back through our archives, we've never had that many teams in one school year qualify for a state tournament. 5 of those being WIAA sports, and I would put our school up to any school in the state in terms of the teams that they qualified. Shorewood, another school in our conference, had 4 state titles this year. They had 2 in track, boys and girls track. They had
Cross country.
Cross country, girls soccer, and maybe both genders in cross. Oh, and boys swim. So one of the genders in cross country. And so, you know, the cross country and track are you know, a lot of the same athletes, right? So if, a lot of times when you have a strong cross country program, you have a strong track program and vice versa. We had 5 WIA sports: girls volleyball, football, boys basketball, girls basketball, and baseball. We had 2 athletes that were multiple sport athletes. Otherwise, they're all individual, they're all on different teams. So we're not sharing athletes. These were 5 completely different teams that qualified for state, which is just outstanding. Those 2 athletes, ironically, I was going to mention them later, but I'll just mention them now. Logan Doberstein and Logan Schill, they have qualified for a team state tournament the last 5 seasons, consecutive seasons, that they have participated. So going back to football of 2020, that was the last time they didn't qualify for a state tournament in a team event. So just outstanding. We had 31 individual state qualifiers, which was far exceeded last year's numbers. Obviously, girls basketball placing second at state, Palms placing second at state as a team, and then moving on to our 2 state championships in football and boys basketball being back-to-back. Under the significant accomplishments, we had 5 athletes that were conference players of the year in their sport. I mean, when I go to athletic director meetings, other athletic directors are just saying, hey, when's the pipeline drying up over there? We're very dominant. It's a very great time to be a Pirate. Having 5 athletes be the best player in the conference in their sport is outstanding. Carson Hansen went on to be the Division II Player of the Year in the state, so the best player in Division II in baseball. And then this year we had 2 Gatorade Player of the Year nominees, Logan Doberstein in baseball and Lucas Nestis in boys soccer. So great honor there. All-state athletes, 16 of them, 16 all-state athletes. And when I see that number, one of the things that jumps to my mind is, as athletic directors or coaches or whatever, when you look through the all-state lineups, I can only imagine that somebody not from Pewaukee is looking, another Pewaukee athlete. And so having 16 all-state athletes is incredible. Along with that, 17 of those athletes of the senior class is going on to participate in college athletics. So just a great number there. It was, for the first time I've ever, as an athletic director, having to have 2 different waves in an athletic signing night was something new. Having to have a wave of 5, all right, do all the pictures, and then another wave of 5 was pretty unusual. In terms of athletic awards, first I want to highlight Josh Cherian becoming a WI Scholar Athlete. I told Josh this when he was awarded this award, that this is probably the highest award that the WIA gives out. Out of all of the student athletes, they only give out 16 male and 16 female Scholar Athlete awards each year. And that's only 4 per division. So 4 Division I, 4 Division II, 4 Division III, and so on. So for male and female. And Josh being one of those 4 in his division is pretty incredible. And then the other thing I want to highlight about the awards, so earlier I mentioned our athletic core principles, and one of my goals this year was to continue to bring those core principles to life. How can we incorporate and embed these principles in everything that our coaches do each and every day? And so one of those ways that we decided to do it was to, we want to measure what we value, right? And so if we value these core principles, we should measure them in some way. And so we came up with an award for each of those core principles, and I'm happy to say that it gained so much momentum that we are going to have a conversation as a coaching staff this fall about every sport going away from giving MVP and most dedicated and most improved to giving these awards only, and really showing the value that we place in that. And the reality is, the compete award is most likely going to be the same athlete that would get the MVP, and so on and so forth. So we're still going to acknowledge the hard work and the dedication, but we're going to do it in a way where we value what we're trying to preach in those core principles. Academic accomplishments. I want to highlight the girls golf team. They had the second highest GPA in the state as a team, so that was pretty impressive. Speaking of scholar athletes, Alyssa Myers, she was the scholar athlete for both cross country and girls track. She was our valedictorian. I just want to point out that she was a two-sport athlete. As we get into sport GPAs, team GPAs, I want to acknowledge a couple sports that were pretty impressive. Girls golf in the fall had 11 athletes, and their GPA was a 3.95 average. Girls basketball had 25 athletes, and they were a 3.82. Boys basketball had 44 athletes, and their GPA was a 3.7. And then the most impressive stat in this entire report was girls track had 48 girls out for track, and their average GPA was a 3.9. That's just outstanding, and I think that the best stat in this report. I did realize that I forgot to add on that page the overall average GPA for all the teams was a 3.6. I forgot to fill that in the report when I gave it to you, so just to add that. Going on to coach professional development, this is something that I really value and I push with our coaches, is to just, as a coach, to always continue to get better as well. We did a book study. We had done a book study before the pandemic, so this was our first one coming back from the pandemic, and we did Chop Wood, Carry Water. The best thing I like about book studies is, yeah, we talk about the book a little bit, but really it gets people in the room talking about side conversations about coaching. Hey, what do you do in this situation? And this is what I believe. And really, the development comes from bouncing ideas off of others. And this was not unique to that. Chop Wood, Carry Water is a great book about the process of being excellent, the process of getting better every single day. So we had some really great conversations and had a really great group participate in that. Moving on to the appendices, the athletic training report. I just want to point out we had 153 injuries this year. That's up 40 from last year. Concussions, we had 32 concussions. That was up 11 from last year. And daily screens, we had 264. We had 1,748. That was up 264 from last year. We didn't have any more serious injuries. We just had more athletes seeing the trainer a little bit. I don't know what the cause or the root of that was necessarily, but just some facts thrown at you. In terms of participation numbers, I had said earlier that our participation rates went up a little bit. The only thing I really want to point out in this is that we had 46.4% of our student athletes were female, 53.6% of our student athletes were male. So that means that we are still in compliance with Title IX. I could get into an entire conversation about Title IX and how we're in compliance, but basically the very short version of it is 48.7% of our enrollment is female, and 46.4% of our athletes are female. This is supposed to be even, but you get a 5% leeway, so we're within that window. We're only 2.6% or whatever off of our female enrollment. So even with adding a boys sport, with boys volleyball, we're still in compliance with Title IX. I listed all conference award winners. The last thing with athletics is just all the standings for each sport, and just pointing out again that we had 5 conference championships. That was more than any other school in our conference. And across all the sports, all the standings, we had a much more successful year that way than any other school in our conference. So with that, I'll open any questions regarding athletics.
Congratulations.
Can you do it again is like the big question, right?
What's next year
That's
look
not
like?
a me question. I hope we can. I mean, in all reality, we had arguably the best class is graduating from Pewaukee High School, and you know, talent speaks, right? And so we're going to miss this senior class, but I also believe when people ask like, why, you know, what's the cause of all the success besides talent? Our athletes have realized what it takes to get to the next level, and whether it be this senior class that is carried, regardless, our athletes have been exposed to what it takes to get to that next level, and you know, kind of once you break through that wall, you know what it takes, right? And so I do think that we are still going to see some continued success. Maybe not as much. That's okay. Not every school gets at the state baseball tournament. I was talking to a friend. I used to live in Milton, and Milton won the Division I baseball state title. And I was talking to him because we were at a different site, and he said, "I can't believe this. I never thought I would see Milton win a state title in anything." And I just kind of had to like, yeah, that's great. You know, here I am at my 5th state tournament of the year, already have 2 state titles, but that put it in perspective of like, we are very fortunate for what we're experiencing right now.
Jeff, what's the status of the boys volleyball? Like, how are their numbers looking?
Yeah.
Assume that they're going to be eligible for
Yep.
post-conference play.
Yeah, so they'll be eligible for post-conference this year. Their numbers are going to be, I think, very similar, if not up a little bit from where they were last year.
Did they have 2 teams?
They had 2 teams last year. We definitely 2 teams, and we have a coach on hold if we have enough for 3 teams. So that's where Coach Barnes is. That's where her mentality is at. Like, hey, I have a person on the side waiting if we need that person.
Jeff, are you thinking of adding any other sports? The one I hear a lot about out there is gymnastics.
Gymnastics, I haven't gotten any interest requests to even look at it, but we don't even have the facility. If we were to add gymnastics, it would be in a co-op fashion. And to be honest, with gymnastics, co-ops is getting to be a thorn in the WIA's side because gymnastics is being cut by so many schools, and so many schools are being forced to co-op that there's one conference in the state that they have one gymnastics program for the entire conference. And so then when it comes to the state meet, you're getting these co-op teams that have 10 schools in it, and it's not going the way that the WI would like. Yeah. There is, though, I will say, going into 23-24, it's almost a done deal that the WI will adopt lacrosse, boys and girls lacrosse, as a WI sanctioned sport. And obviously, we've had a boys lacrosse team the last couple of years. Girls' numbers have floundered a little bit. We are in works with the Waukesha School District, who right now they co-op 3 schools, Waukesha schools, for their lacrosse program. And we're hoping to get into a co-op with them this next year before it becomes a WIA sport. So the co-op is already established.
For girls?
And that, for boys and girls.
Boys and girls.
So, yeah, I'll come back to the numbers in a second. So then that way, when the WIA adopts it as a sanctioned sport, we will already kind of have that going and hopefully be kind of grandfathered in as a co-op. In terms of numbers, so when we look to add sports, obviously sustainability is a big piece. And one of the things that has always held up boys lacrosse in particular, besides the impacts on Title IX, has been that sustainability piece. They graduated 12 seniors out of that lacrosse. They have 5 returners. And so that's why we need to co-op. And we're hoping to co-op at the youth level as well to build numbers at the youth level, so eventually we can have our standalone program. But just numbers aren't there right now.
I have to say, Jeff, it sounds kind of contrary, but I think having more visits to the trainers is a good thing, because it tells me that the kids are more willing to come to the trainer for help, and they trust them.
Yeah, and she is very, very good. I am very happy with Rihanna. We made a change a couple years ago from Pro Health, from Aurora to Pro Health, and brought Rihanna on, and she's been phenomenal. And you're right, kids really do trust her, and have really grown to accept her diagnosis and things like that. So, yeah.
Anything else on athletics? Do you want to shift to activities?
I'll shift to activities. This will be really quick. So this year we had 31 activities, which was up 4 from last year, and we were up 327 participants from last year. We had 945 this year. In all fairness, most of that is due to COVID. We didn't have ski club last year, and that ski club is huge numbers. So we had some activities, some organizations, some clubs that were back running now after COVID. In terms of participants, 60% of the student body was involved in some activity in one of those 31 activities, and I listed that out by one activity all the way down to 8. The one thing I do want to mention about how I broke that down, the one student who was involved in 8 different activities, anybody want to guess?
Khadijah, yeah.
Who was our salutatorian
Yeah.
in the class, and served on the school board as a liaison, if I remember right. So just the amount of things that she was able to participate in. She was also a one-sport athlete. She participated in cross country, and so that's not involved in these 8, not included in these 8. So just a shout out to Khadijah for what she has done, she did during her high school years here. Moving on, you can see what the drama performances were. We have groups, organizations, clubs that are divided into service, community, and competition. And some of our competition activities had successful years. Academic Decathlon went on to place 2nd in Division II. Science Olympiad, in their only 2nd year of existence, qualified for their state meet. Robotics has always been a strong organization here, continued to do well, and Future Business Leaders of America again went on and participated at their regional competition. For rock climbing, a culinary club also participated at their state meet, and the management team placed 2nd in the state. Rock climbing, we had a state champion and a 3rd place, and then Heather Sunderledge participated in the state honors choir, which is a very high and prestigious honor in the choir realm in the state. The average GPA of all the club members was a 3.74, and again, robotics won the Gracious Professionalism Award. I think this is the 2nd year in a row for them to do that. The overall participation, I always add this at the end of the activities report. My numbers are off, so I want to clarify. For you, I have that 640 individual students were involved in something, either athletic or activity. That number should actually be 705. So 705 students out of our 839 students were involved in something, which is 84% of our student body.
That's great.
Again, going back to that study about kids being involved, that's pretty great when we have 84% of our students involved in something, which is really what we're going after. Obviously, we want that, we would like that number to be 100. But again, being in a public institution, I don't know if that's ever achievable. We can sure keep trying. So that's my activities report.
Thank you. Any questions on the activities update? Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks, Jeff.
And
Excellent.
you're not going anywhere.
Nope, I'll stay up here for a little bit.
Just
How
before,
about one more topic?
just
Nope.
before, I just want to let our audience know, you're welcome to stay. But you guys are done. You don't have to stay for the whole agenda if you would like to. I just always will, we like to let you know, although you are certainly welcome to sit for the meeting.
Thank you. And for the three-peat of your own, how about to give us an update on the WIA?
Well, was the WIA next or was the?
Code of conduct.
Real
We actually
quick,
have 4.
there are no changes to our code of conduct. So, yeah, I included that in there, so that's staying the same. I'll invite any questions about the code of conduct. There are,
Jeff, the last substantial revision of that was when?
right before the pandemic, so, after.
A couple of years ago.
After the 1920, so it was in that 1920 school year.
And that process involved a variety of stakeholders, right?
Yep, we had coaches, we had parents, and we had a couple student athletes. And that was a big overhaul. I mean, we marked it out to minor and major offenses. It was a big overhaul of the code of conduct.
I guess
For
I'll ask
high
a
school,
question.
do we have a code of conduct for middle school
We
too?
do, yep. I mean, it's very general. If you get suspended, you have to sit out
Right.
X amount. I mean, it's very general. It's not anywhere close to as detailed as the high school.
I guess I'll ask one question. One coaching vacancy expected for next year to fill out?
I received one today.
You got one. Excellent.
We have a vacancy.
Yes.
I became notice
Oh.
of a vacancy.
Got it. So that'll be the second one to fill.
No.
Did no coach retired this year? Or left the school? We didn't lose anybody, okay.
No.
I thought I.
Someone you know of
No,
that I don't?
I thought I heard that.
No, not today.
Okay, all right, good. All right, one to fill then.
One to fill right now.
Good luck.
In 5 weeks before the season starts.
Oh, that's challenging.
Yeah. And then the last one is the WIA. Oh, sorry.
It's up to him. I mean, you-
Boys soccer. We have a boys soccer vacancy.
All right. And now the WIA.
Yeah,
renewal.
and
Thank you.
that just needs a signature. If you approve of it, don't have any questions. That just requires a signature. I think Steve of you and Mike.
Any questions about the renewal that you saw the memo on?
I will clarify, because I had a question to the WIA. If I remember right, boys and girls wrestling is separated, and boys is checked, but girls isn't. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I reached out to the WIA and said, well, wait a minute, if we do have a girl, are we now not postseason eligible? And they said wrestling is just different because girls have been allowed to participate in wrestling for literally decades. And so wrestling is just different. If we haven't had a girl participate in wrestling, if we did, she would be eligible for postseason.
Thank you for checking that out for us.
I move to approve the membership renewal for Pewaukee School District and the WIAA for the 2022-23 school year.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you coming in.
And
hitting
then
us up.
when you sign that, will you give it to Julie, Sandy? I'll grab it. All right, thank you.
We can get it to you tomorrow.
Have a good night,
Thanks,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Good night, Jeff. Thanks.
And next, we'll have Danielle talk to us about the standards adoption, which we briefly spoke about at our last meeting. but needed
Yeah,
to postpone.
so again, yeah, we saw this the last meeting and just moved it forward because of the rule that it has to be in the first meeting in July, but this is the annual standards adoption. There was a link that broke in the last 2 weeks that Jane found for me, so I appreciate that. That has been updated. Otherwise, I would seek your approval of the list of standards unless you have any questions. Happy to take those.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Danielle, for that brief update. And now we have a new course proposal
Yeah, so I included the memo and the details around this. So Nicole Dirksey, who was new to us this year, taught our Insight Advanced Journalism course, and she happened to also take on the role of yearbook supervisor, as often happens when you're new to a school. You get to have some supervisory duties assigned to you. And she actually found a good opportunity to include the yearbook as part of the Insight course. The standards would all remain the same. This would essentially could be viewed as an additional assignment, basically, inside of it. Our yearbook participation numbers, if you looked at Jeff's report, he had 6, but 6 actually turned into 3 who were actually doing anything this past year. That's been really typical the last probably 5 years. We've had 1 to 3 students doing the yearbook, which means that primarily the supervisor has been doing the yeoman's share of the yearbook publication. So moving it into the Insight course would definitely increase student participation in the production of the yearbook, and aligns perfectly with the curriculum and the skills that they're already doing. And so Nicole came to Brian Sniff and I at the end of the year with this proposal. Of course, again, her being new, she wouldn't have been able to totally experience and witness this by November when we normally bring courses. This would be a half credit for second semester. The Insight course runs all year, but we would put this in as a second semester credit, even though the yearbook would be worked on obviously all year long to be able to be inclusive of the entire school year. It's informational for tonight, but between now and I guess August 22nd, the next time we meet, I'd be happy to answer any questions or answer any questions you have tonight. But I thought this was a creative solution to an existing challenge, and would be good work for students to participate in, but happy to answer any questions you have tonight.
I just have one. I agree with you. I loved the creativity and the thinking outside the box to solve this problem. I assume if there is 1 or 2 students who are not in that Insight program, but they want to participate, they'll be allowed to?
Yeah, we would definitely work with them if there was any, yeah.
Yearbooks will always take all the help they can get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I figured. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
I can't imagine things are going to change drastically
No,
with
yes,
the
but-
volunteer edge of it, but
Yeah.
Brian?
Maybe this is not a fair question, but why is it not a popular activity?
A lot of it, because it's not a part of the school day, it does require a substantial amount of out of school, activities and stuff. And I think kids tend to then lose interest, whereas if it's an assignment for a class, it ends up, they stay engaged with it a little bit longer, because it does go on the entire year. And so there's also kids who are involved in a lot of other activities after school, as we saw in Jeff's report. And so they think, well, if I can't commit for the full year, then I shouldn't do it at all. Yearbook really is something where kids could do that, but I just think when they're looking at their long list of activities and stuff, it often just sort of drops to the bottom, because it's a pretty consistent year-long commitment that you have to make. So I would equate it very similar to what we see with Model UN and Academic Decathlon, that those have been more successful when built into the school day because of the amount of work that they take as an activity. They're not quite as, I guess they're more academic in nature than maybe some other activities or clubs. So I think that usually influences students' decisions.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Great, well, thank you for that update. Team, if you have any questions, please pass them on to Danielle.
Will this go into the consent agenda then?
Do you want to come back and have a presentation about it, or?
I would
or
be
you'd
happy for it to
with-
move into consent agenda unless anybody felt otherwise.
Great question. Thank you, Brian, for suggesting that.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm
do that.
comfortable with that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, school breakfast program discussion. John, are you going to take us through this one?
Sure. So for several years now, we've been looking at what would a school breakfast program look like, and what is the need for a school breakfast program in Pewaukee. In looking back over the last several years, There's been interest, but it's when that interest compounded where we really started looking forward at what that program would look like. This year there were several items. As you know, we've been under the SSO program for the last 2 years, a seamless summer option, where meals have been no charge in the school district. It coincides also with some of the graduate profile work in doing the care surveys at the elementary building. So one of the questions that is asked at PLE of the students, there's 3 questions. One of them, did you have breakfast today? And then when we see a recurring theme on the responses to that survey, there's an engagement with the parents when they're there or contact with them to understand the why. And yes, some of the cases, it was the students just didn't like their choice, but just the other ones didn't have the opportunity. So that led us to explore a little bit further, and ultimately, through a couple of different pieces of evidence that we looked at, decided to survey the parents as part of our end of the year surveys to see, is there an interest, a broader interest in providing a breakfast program. The response we got back at Pewaukee Lake Elementary was almost 29% of the parents said, my child would definitely or most likely will participate in a breakfast program if it's offered. That's a substantial number of kids. That's almost 30% of the student population, or over 200 students in that building alone. The numbers also at Horizon came back over 20%, over close to 25%. Even at the high school, it was close to 20% of parents said, my student, yes, definitely would participate or most likely would participate in a breakfast program. That tells us that the demand is there now to start looking at a program and offering a breakfast program. So we start shifting then, looking broader at the breakfast programming itself, in working with talking with the Department of Public Instruction. One of the pieces that they had communicated with us is we are one of the few of only a handful of public school districts in the state of Wisconsin that does not have a breakfast program that's offered. Not all of them offer it at all sites, from elementary all the way through high school. In fact, in our area here, just over half of the districts have a full breakfast program at all buildings. Other ones are at the middle and high school level or at the high school level where it's the most popular, where it's been maintained in those buildings.
Really? It's most popular at high school level?
Most high schools in the county, in the area here, yes.
Well, that surprises me. Okay.
Yeah. So we started diving into a couple of conference calls, looking at some of the materials that have been provided to you to give a background on the breakfast program, to analyze what would that look like in the district. And we're very fortunate to have Clayton Muchler here with Chartwells, and his supervisor has been working on him for 2.5 years on when are you going to have a breakfast program in Pewaukee. It will benefit everybody. So Clayton's done a lot of legwork up to this point. I will tell you, we have work to do yet on it, but we're really comfortable that we can provide a quality program coming in the fall, and stepping our way into a program offering for school breakfast, but a lot of little fine details to happen yet. We want to work really closely with the staffs in the building to make sure this doesn't at all put any burden on the classroom instruction or inhibit classrooms at all in any manner. And feel comfortable that we've got a plan, but we need to get a lot of engagement with them when they return. So to talk a little bit about what a breakfast program would look like, I asked Clayton to be here, and thanks for spending the last hour with everything else you learned about the district.
Very interesting. Thanks for having me.
One bit of advice, don't leave right now.
Yeah.
Stay for a few more minutes, let this go by.
Yeah, so the school breakfast program is similar to the lunch program in compliancy, is what we have to serve, and nutritional standards. So that being said, we're able to serve it in the classroom, which would help alleviate a lot of the pressures of getting off the bus and having to go to the cafeteria or anything like that. We're able to kind of get a read and an idea from the teachers who can get a count or some sort of reading from the day before. We can communicate that to the kitchen staff. The kitchen staff can then create, or at least get started on making packs for the next morning. So that helps in labor due to the fact that we don't need somebody then coming in earlier the day before, maybe a half an hour or 15 minutes earlier, but that person could leave then earlier in the day. But basically the way it looks is, you get that count. The teacher will have a roster, and it'll probably be like a dry erase fashion where we can just reuse it daily. But the way it works is we create the packs, and that morning, about 10 minutes before kids get there, we'll come around the classrooms with the counts that we received the day before, and then hand that off to the teacher. The teacher then has to make sure that the student grabs the pack and then gets checked off. That's one of the main deficiencies in the standards there from DPI. But other than that, all of the compliances are taken care of on our end, so we're able to make sure that in the pack it's compliant, so the teacher can just give a meal that is completely compliant. Now, those meals likely will be like 3 to 4 days a week would be completely cold. So a muffin and a banana and Nutri-Grain or granola bar and juice or milk. Milk is every day. But, or, you know, on a hot day, it could be an egg sandwich with all those things, fresh fruit being definitely centered there on that. A lot of I've diverted more money from money I get from the government to fresh produce this year. So this will actually help to draw that number down. I much prefer to give a child fresh fruit in the morning than anything canned or anything like that. So, yeah, you know, I think that this is a win because there's a lot of research that shows that if you're distracted by hunger, you're not, you know, I can speak to it. You get up, you know, you're more ornery than I think anyone could admit that. So, you know, I would imagine that we get a little bit of flack from teachers and that it may be difficult in the beginning, but I can guarantee that eventually, once we get the kinks out, the kids will get used to that and they'll look forward to that. And hopefully that can lead to more focus, you know, throughout their class. So, any questions?
Just from a program delivery model, one of the things that we would look at is, and when Clayton talked about the least disruption at the elementary classrooms, at PLE we have that morning meeting time. It's about 10 to 15 minutes to start the day where they're organizing and going through the daily tasks and that would be the target window for that delivery for those breakfasts, so the students could do that while they're going through that organizational step in the day. At Horizon and at the secondary level, when we expand into those areas, the buses arrive early enough, the students would have the opportunity to go to the cafeteria and get their meal right in the cafeteria, just like they would for a lunch as they're coming through there. From a pricing.
John, they'd pick it up or they'd actually eat it there?
Eat it there.
Okay.
From a financial standpoint, the program that we'd offer when Clayton talked about a compliant meal, as long as it has 3 of the 4 components that are required for a meal, it would be eligible for reimbursement under the school breakfast program, very similar to the National School Lunch Program under the USDA that we operate under already for all of our lunch service. And those reimbursement rates are bolstered next year as part of a most recent action that was taken by the federal government for all those levels. We anticipate that we'll have a full price, we'll have a model where we have a full price or a free price. So a 2-tier pricing model at the breakfast program. On the back end is where Clayton inputs the information from that, he talked about the checklist. He inputs that on the back end, so if a student qualifies for reduced price meals, that would be the reimbursement rate that is collected from the federal government, but we won't charge them the difference between the free meal and the reversed and the reduced, because you want to encourage participation and engagement with the entire population to simplify it as much as we can. You talked about staffing considerations. We don't anticipate a significant increase in staffing, but in some of the costing models of what it would take for a price point on here, indications are with minimal staffing increases, we still will have a break-even program or a profitable program with the interest that's been expressed so far. And then finally, from an equipment standpoint, we don't see a significant increase in what we would need. Potentially where we're delivering the hot meals on a day, we may need some more of the heat bags or the cool bags for delivering those things, but that's not a significant cost item that we would think would impact the program negatively. Finally, we've been very profitable this past year and a half in the food service program. We're reinvesting right now in some of the kitchens and some of the improvements that are being made. That profitability also gives us a buffer for implementation of this program. So if you see an implementation dip or until that participation grows, as we work to grow the participation, we have the resources to be able to absorb that on an implementation.
Brian, I think you had a question?
Yeah, I would like to see this program be very successful, but you said that the children would have to tell you the day in advance that they want breakfast the next day. You're confident that first graders will know that in advance?
To begin with, probably not, but, with routine, I think that we can get there. I think that, no matter what, we would always prepare a buffer, We'd have to track that daily to make sure we're not having waste or anything like that, but for sure, if, we have 12 kids that say that they want it, maybe in the beginning we'll start with sending 15 packs. A lot of that, some of that stuff could be reused the next day or not, so.
Is there any thought to maybe a platform where the parents can actually provide that information for the next day?
Yeah, that there is that activity I can do on my Slices, that is our app that is used for our menuing. So that capability is there. I would have to research and figure out how to do that, but the capability for the parent to the night before kind of put through an order, I believe, is there.
So the thought is to roll it out elementary-wise, get some of the kinks worked out?
Right, so implementation would be hopefully starting with PLE in the first quarter, Horizon second quarter, and then second semester, hopefully go ASA in high school at the same time. It would be the same model there. It would be a little easier to do there. Not that it would be hard in the elementary schools, but I feel that at the high schools, the model will be almost exactly the same as lunch. So I think students would pick up on it pretty quick. We could market it, plenty of time ahead of that.
Yeah.
Is the PLE accounting model for lunch similar to what we would do, or is there any challenges related to how you record who's
It's similar
taken
to
lunch?
what we do now because of SSO having to check.
Okay.
That's been a new thing to school lunch. So no, it actually wouldn't be much different. However, the teacher has to do that. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Right, the key
Rather than
piece.
right now, the kitchen staff doing it.
Yeah, the key element of that is the offer versus serve, so the training that we would provide for the teacher to meet the requirement of that offer versus serve, that makes sure there's an eligible meal that's being provided to them. We do that accountability training with our kitchen staff right now as they're checking the students out as they come through the line. That's where it's documented right in on the computer. That training would take place, and we don't think it's gonna be that intrusive of a training, but just to, since the components are all gonna be in the packaged meal that's going to PLE, we can get by with training and then having the checkbox that they receive that meal.
John, you were talking about possibly potential additional staffing. And I'm wondering if there's a way possible, we have such a robust parent volunteer program. Could we possibly consider using volunteers to help alleviate that stress on our teachers in PLE when we first roll this out?
Yeah, I think the only staffing element of it right now is the packaging. So we would have to make sure that we had the proper training for volunteers, but it's definitely something from packaging to delivery that would be an element that definitely could engage some of our volunteers.
I appreciate your desire to not put another or more burden on the teachers, but I do believe that this program has merit and that teachers would see benefit.
I think so too. At first, maybe it would be a little cumbersome, but I think that, I will create a menu that's not, I'm not giving them maple syrup and they're filling it up. All those considerations will have to be thought of, and I'll try to make it as easy as I can on them, but at the same time, the nutritional needs of the student is gonna trump that, so.
I agree.
One kind of question, and John, you kind of brought it up, and Stacy brought it up. You said the numbers at the high school were kind of on the high side in given that there's a potentially easier to do in the high school, is there value to starting that sooner rather than second semester? But
What's nice about it is we can accelerate it any time. If it takes off like we anticipate in the fall, we could accelerate the middle and high school up to that. There's nothing magic about waiting till second semester. It's just that implementation step of being able to roll those things out.
okay.
Looking for a motion?
Ready. If there are no more other questions?
Motion to approve the development and offering of a school breakfast program for the 2022-23 school year.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you so very much, Chef Clayton, for your
Thanks, Clayton.
support of our students, our
John
staff.
Clayton, thank you for bringing this opportunity to us, so.
Thank you.
Don't get wet.
Yeah.
That might
Like
not
on
be
that one.
impossible to avoid.
Bye now.
Thank you.
It says it stops in 41 minutes, so.
41, huh?
Guess I know how long we'll be here. Next up, John is going to give us an update on a transfer request to Fund 46.
Thanks, Steve. So the board, what we're recommending as an administration is to take some of the residual balances from the general fund, from the operating fund, and designate them to Fund 46 in the amount of $275,000. This capital improvement trust fund was established in 2013 and contributions are made essentially about every other year to this fund. Our overall, at the end of this year, will be about $934,000 as a balance after this transfer is made. And again, this is the way the board demonstrates their fiduciary responsibility to the community of caring for the facilities. It's been very important to this board historically that we do not have deferred maintenance, that we keep the board appraised of what are those capital needs that are in the buildings, both from a small project standpoint to a enhancement to the delivery model in a building to a full out referendum. And this is a way to set funds aside for those expenses that we know are going to be predictable or semi-predictable and not have to put a burden on the operating budget or on the general fund if we do have a break fix or a project that needs to be completed. So the recommendation would be to authorize that transfer. Under the statute, you can make this transfer at any point up until July 31st. The funds actually get transferred from our operating accounts to this segregated banking arrangement for investment.
Questions for John?
I move to approve the transfer of $275,000 to Fund 46 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you, John, for that, and thank you, everyone. Jeannie is going to give us an update now on the policy committee.
We're on a roll at our last meeting, I'll tell you. I'll start with policy number 6300.05. Originally, you did not have the updated policy in your agenda. Julie fixed that today, so if you want to go back and double check it, you may do so. But the changes that we basically made was under field trips for approved in writing for superintendent had to be greater than 300 miles and or one or more nights. And the only ones that need to be approved by the Board of Education involve international travel, like the one we had tonight. And then we put another paragraph in there that says field trips which require superintendent approval should be submitted for approval a minimum of 20 days in advance whenever practical to do so. The superintendent has the discretion to approve trips submitted outside the 20-day timeline if deemed appropriate. We put that in because we have so many teams going to state that we don't have 20 days notice that they're going there. And they're usually staying for at least one night, which would deem, they needed superintendent approval and kind of in that catch-22. It's a good problem to have, but that's why we had to change it like that.
Excellent.
Were there any questions on it? Policy number 7100.05, Board of Education meetings. We added the fact that the president needs to work with the superintendent to create the annual board calendar, which I think Brian had been doing before that, but now it's in writing. And that we will complete an annual evaluation. We did not put a date in there, just to leave it a little more open. And we will be writing procedures for this, but I wanted to bring the policy to the committee first to see if everyone was agreeable to it, and then we will work on procedures. And even though I don't need to, I will bring the procedures back to the board so that you can all see them too right away. Questions on that? If you have any suggestions on procedures, please let me know, because we're starting on them from kind of scratch.
Excellent.
Policy number 4000.13, prohibiting profanity and obscenity by staff, and all we did in here was make some grammar changes. No questions on that. Policy number 5300.14, appropriate use of seclusion and restraint. And again, we just made it a couple of grammar changes. If you go back and look at this in the procedures, which were not attached, there was one section of the procedures where, for some reason, it was repeated as to what the definition of restraint and seclusion were, and we just took the second copy out. Policy number 5500.04, communicable diseases. We changed nothing in here. This is the way it is, and most of how it's written is from the state or some higher authority than us. Policy number 5500.10, headlights. Larry wanted to change it to headlight mitigation because we're really not promoting headlights. And the changes go with changes that the health department has put through. We're just updating their changes. Questions? Okay. Policy number 6200.03, homebound instruction. Again, there were just a couple of grammar changes in there. Policy number 6400.04, curriculum, co-curricular activities, and there were no changes in this policy.
Questions for Jeannie, anyone? So those will be included in next meeting's review under their consent agenda for your approval. Excellent. Board goals and operations, upcoming activities.
Personnel.
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 Sorry, apologize, thank you for catching me. Personnel resignations, and we did have two.
We have two resignations. I would seek your approval of resignations from James Tessman, FIAD teacher from Horizon, and Kendra Tharp, special ed teacher at Asa Clark.
Any questions about those?
Move to approve the two resignations.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. And now employments. And
Employments.
also two.
Yeah, and I actually added a third late in the day, so there are three in there now. Those include Colleen Moncada, our hiring recommendation for, I believe it's first grade teacher. And Colleen has been working for us. She previously was a teacher in another district, has been working for us as a paraprofessional, and has done a great job. Nick Kramer is our recommendation at Horizon Elementary for physical education. And Sarah Kennedy is our recommendation for special education teacher at Horizon Elementary.
Questions for Mike about the hire recommendations?
Move to approve the hiring recommendations for Moncada, Kramer, and Kennedy.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. And still no leave of absence requests?
No leaves.
Excellent, thank you. Now we'll go to board goals and operations, review of upcoming activities. You do have in your DA report the list that I will share here. July 27th, the WASBO Custodial Conference here at the high school. Great for us to get some publicity there and have our team recognized for that, with that location of that conference being here?
Yeah, I'll be hosting. I think John Stangler said he expects maybe 400.
Wow.
408, one more
Wow.
than his colleague got in another district.
Not that he's competitive. Wow. So yeah, that'll be a nice opportunity. John's looking forward to hosting and showing our beautiful facilities. I regret that I can't be here to welcome the group. I'll be in Tomahawk on vacation with my family that week, but it'll be nice for the school district, and John will do a great job with that.
Next thing you know, everybody will want a single campus for their school district.
Yeah. We'll have to make sure they're here when morning traffic is, so they can see both sides of it.
On August 10th, the Board Goals Committee will be meeting at 6 p.m. in the district office conference room. If you'd like to attend, you're certainly welcome to do so. On August 17th, we have the new teacher breakfast at 7:30 a.m. here at the high school. August 22nd, our annual meeting with 6 p.m. Business Affairs meeting, a 6:30 p.m. board meeting, and then the official annual meeting at 7 p.m. Those are all held in the auditorium. Working on a chairperson.
We're still working on chairperson. If you have recommendations, let us know, but we'll be talking to a couple of people.
Excellent. On the day after, on August 23rd, is our welcome back breakfast for our teaching staff here at the high school, 7:30 a.m. and a possible meeting that morning to deal with any last minute hiring recommendations. Yeah.
I will not be available for that day.
Okay, thank you, Brian. We'll eat all the muffins for you. September 12th, our first official school board meeting of after the school year begins, with a 6 p.m. business affairs meeting and a 7 o'clock full board meeting, and then on the 26th, full board at 7. Did I miss anything?
We have policy in September?
We don't have
I think
policy
it's
against
October.
scheduled until October.
Okay.
I think it's October, yeah. Thanks for asking. Any questions about the upcoming schedule? Any items for legislative advocacy that anyone is hearing about?
Not much going on right now.
Yeah, it's summer. Yeah, nice and quiet like it should be.
Don't forget to vote in August, though, right?
Votes in August, that's right. Board of Education goal setting, Larry thankfully had some things put in the packet for all of you to see. As I mentioned, we have scheduled the 10th of August as our date to get together as a committee, 6 p.m. here on campus. Love to have any inputs, people, even if you're not a part of the committee and you would like to suggest something for us to consider. We certainly want to hear your voice as we prepare a first draft of what goals might look like for the upcoming school year that we'd come back, of course, to the full board for approval for, but we'd love to have any input that you have to share. Yes, Brian?
We can review who's in the committee right now.
Yes.
Myself,
Well, we knew you.
Stacy, Steve, Jane, and Brent.
yeah, so there's 5 of us.
5, yep, that's it. So thank you. So those items are in your board packet from this meeting. Any questions, concerns, challenges related to that?
Just one thing is regarding the activity on Wednesday. We're going to remind.
Yeah, just if you are planning on participating in the little library installation, 12:30 in the PHS Tech Ed rooms is where we'll start, and then bring any books of any kind, as well as non-perishable food items if you want to donate anything into the libraries once we actually install them. I think we will have more than enough to fill them up, so I don't think anybody needs to bring too much, just whatever you have maybe that you're wanting to part with anyways from your home if you're able to participate.
Thank you. And thanks for the folks who participated today in that activity. It was great. If there's no other questions around Board of Education goal setting, then the WASB membership renewal conversation, there was a request to have that discussed at the board level. Anybody have a concern, question, want to proffer an idea around our membership in that group?
I just have a question. I thought we had already applied for the next year. I thought it
The
was a done
renewal
deal.
has went through and the renewal has been processed.
Okay, so I'm not sure that discussing it too much will have much of a difference since we already paid for it.
Yeah, but if it's a concern of any of the members of the board, would love to hear that out, and we could take that in consideration in terms of our participation. Even though we've already joined as a member, we can decide any changes we want to make in terms of our participation, or we can make sure we have a conversation about that prior to renewal again for the next year.
Yeah, and I think if that's probably the better outcome of this, is that just like with the SWSA or participation in these activities, I mean, I think it would make sense to have us kind of have at least a chance to vote on it versus automatic renewal, if that's a possibility, so.
So let's add that to our calendar. When does the new renewal typically occur?
Yeah, I mean, we just renewed it, so
Usually June.
it's May, June.
Yeah, so sometime at the end of May next year, maybe we put that in the agenda. Thanks, Larry.
When does the renewal for NSBA come up?
I think, I would have to check with Julie. I think they're kind of done together. I believe.
I think you're right.
A lot of times those memberships, like I know, we just did WASDA, which is the State District Administrators Association, and AESA is also done at the same time. So I believe they're done together.
All kind of end of the year things. for
Yeah.
school.
It might be helpful too at some point. I mean, I know that I've probably been a pretty active participant in terms of WASB and serve as a peer mentor for the organization, but I mean, we do get things like the focus and different documents that are out there that give us some guidance in terms of some of our policy development kinds of things. They do serve as our legislative advocacy kind of group from a WASB perspective in the state capitol. And I know Bren had asked about some classes over the last couple of years. I mean, they've really taken the time to develop some online webinars. They encourage a lot of the new board members to take advantage of those, because I think they're almost like free in terms of being out there. So it's one of those things, and I will definitely talk to you about there's a lot of stuff usually in terms of what they've done, and a couple of really good books, the guidebook or handbook for candidates, and then there's a school board members kind of a guidebook out there as well. So I mean, I think we get a certain amount of value. In fact, I don't remember exactly what the fee is that we pay for WASB, but I think we offer something there. That obviously we go to the state convention, which, how many years have we been doing presentations there too? I mean, it's almost as long as the national convention that we get one or two opportunities to speak there as well. So, and sometimes we even get recognized in terms of people like John get recognized at those events sometimes too, so. So that's
Thank
my
you.
argument
Thank
for
you.
it in terms of renewing it if we did, but.
Appreciate it, Larry. Thanks for speaking your mind on that. Clearly, there's a lot of conversation about WASB and its decision to withdraw from the NSBA Association for the upcoming year, and so we should be open to talking about that as a board and discussing our concerns and advocating for what we believe is appropriate for our students in our district and our state and the education environment in our state. Any other concerns on this matter?
Or citizens' comments, things.
Excellent. Well, we're up for comments from citizens, and you've hung out with us for so
Yes.
long,
Yes.
Bailey.
I actually just wanted to hear the rest of the meeting, but I think at this point now, I will just transform my advocacy statement into a thank you for allowing this, for giving our kids this opportunity to have a wonderful new dimension added to their education.
Thank you for being here tonight and being part of the whole environment.
Can we ask her a question on that one? Can you expound a little bit in terms of why it means something, or why was it important? Why were you advocating for it?
I have a son who will be in 8th grade next year. He enjoyed having Mrs. Jusela
was his LA teacher. And so he was a part of that program where the idea was conceived and expounded upon a little bit. And I have a daughter who's going into 6th grade next year, and she would also benefit from this. But as a parent, I look at the long-term implications. There are so many benefits to traveling internationally young. They are young, they want to see the world, and once you travel internationally, you just want to do more and you want to explore. And the graduate profile competencies that we stress would all be aided by the challenges that would be presented from planning this, having expectations that they would have to meet, and goals that they would have to set and meet in order to work together collaboratively to raise the money for this, to plan it, to do this through the launch cycle. Once they get over to a foreign country, they have to learn how to navigate a city, how to ask for help, how to find something to eat, how to work with currency. I also look at how this is going to transcend their lives beyond the school years. And they are going to be, one of the benefits of international travel is that they not only are more global citizens, they are more culturally adaptive, they become more competitive. It is something that is very attractive to colleges and to employers, and so this would be giving them a leg up. So I think you are giving them all an opportunity that will serve them and shape them beyond the years that they're in these buildings. And I did want to, because I can never resist a chance to speak glowingly about our school district, I did some informal polling among parents in other districts, and although it's not anything scientific, I don't know how accurate it is, but the information that I have been led to understand is that our area neighbors, their middle schools are not offering an international program, maybe a DC program. But I think that's yet another example of how we set ourselves apart from our neighbors, and just another way that we underscore our excellence. So I think that this will be an opportunity that hopefully will continue. I think we'll have success. I know we will have engaged parents who will support this. And I know there are community sponsors already that are always looking for ways to help. I kind of hit up a lot of businesses for PTO things and for events that we do, and there's always that excitement and willingness of our community partners to be involved with the school district because they know what an asset it is. So from a parent's perspective, thank you for letting me share that, and I think it's just something that will continue to benefit them throughout their lives.
Thank you for your advocacy for your children.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I suspect that there aren't any other, since there's no one else here. We now have a need to move into closed session in accordance with Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Pren 1, Pren C, discussion and potential action concerning the performance evaluation, individual contracts and salaries of individual teachers pursuant to what the reference statute that I spoke of earlier, and our district administrator evaluation and compensation potential action. So I need to take a roll call vote.
Can I have a motion, please?
Oh, yes, please, Brian, thank you.
I'll move to go into closed session pursuant to that statute 1985, Pren 1, Pren C.
Thank you.
And, yeah, I think that's good.
Second.
Thank you. We'll take a roll call vote. Jeannie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Bren?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
We are now, and chair votes yes, we are now in closed session. So we're back in open session, and we're ready to take action on the results of our discussions. I'd like to seek a motion if there's one to be offered.
I thought I had it, but maybe, let's see. Yeah, it's
Is it
basically
this?
just, yeah,
I
it's
move
just,
to approve the teacher compensation system as presented for the 2022-2023 contract year that will provide supplemental pay for all regular, full-time, and regular part-time professional employees employed by the district, including but not limited to certified full and part-time teachers as defined.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes 7-0.
I move to approve the individual administrator contract for the 2022 to 2024 contract term as presented.
Second.
Right?
Second?
Yeah, second.
Thank you.
who got it?
Jane.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
We're good. And the
Motion
to
passes
adjourn.
7-0.
Oh, yeah, okay. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for your work
Okay,
tonight.
so then, and we just, do we need to shred anything, or is everything okay?
Yeah. Last time he
yeah,
he
these-
took all of it
His
last time.
salary.
Yeah, while these are eventually going to be public
Anyways?
information,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
eventually,
not a,
Yeah.
not that I'm gonna go
We don't have a way to.
it's
do
going to be
anything
out
with
there
it.
on the WASB website.
We just know not